Good morning, everyone, and welcome to HTML2. Today, I'm going to show you how to build a simple web page. And to start, I laid it out. It's very basic. Laid it out in Photoshop. See, I have title, some links. These represent links, some body copy, and picture, which is pretty much the basic of any website or web page. To start, it's always good to lay out your pages in Photoshop or Fireworks or some sort of image editing program so you know where you're going to end up and you're not floundering around in HTML. So I did that, and now to start, open Dreamweaver. And in Dreamweaver, the first thing I usually do when I build a site is I go into the site menu and I make a new site. This actually helps you keep all of your files in one area, and it creates what's called a root directory, which all of your files point to. So I'm going to name this my web page. If you have a URL for it, you can type it in, but I usually leave it blank. You don't want to use any server technology for this, which is PHP, ASP, Cold Fusion, things like that, which is very advanced. What's this? Let's see. You want to keep the copies of this is where you point to where your files are going to be stored. I have mine on the desktop and my web page. Choose, and then do next. Do none for this. This is a testing server where if you did have some sort of server-side technology, you would designate it here. But we do not, so we're going to skip that, and we hit done. And now your files palette will open, and you'll see your site in here, my web page, and it gives you the folder structure as of what we have right now. Just make this a little bigger. So right now I just have a folder in there with images. And I have a background image and my picture, and that's it. To create a new HTML page, if you're in the welcome screen, you can hit HTML, or you can do File, New, and you'll get this new document window. You have tons of different options from HTML to XML, CSS sheets, Cold Fusion documents, PHP documents, JavaScript. You have templates that you can choose from, which actually some of them give you CSS pre-made style sheets to use. I usually just start with a regular HTML page, no layout defined, and then just hit, I actually sometimes change this to strict, and then create. And this is what you get, a blank page. I never use the design view, I always go into the code view, and this is what it gives you when you create a new document. It gives you the doc type tag, which kind of explains which version of HTML to use. There's 3 different versions of it. There's actually 4 now with HTML5. And that strict option that I chose is what this tells it to use. And then you just have your namespace description, which pretty much tells the browser which tags are going to be able to be used throughout your website. You have some meta information, which is read by search engines. You have your title, which your title actually shows up in your title bar when you change this. So, my web page. And then this closes out the header section. In the header section, that's where you put your metadata, your title, sometimes your JavaScript and your CSS. That's where all of those links go. And then you have your body tag where all of your body copy will go. And then you close it out. You always, always, always close every single tag in HTML. I'll go into what tags are a little later on. So let's save this. You can go into File Save or Command Control Save. Control for PC, Command for Mac. We're going to name this index.html. and we're going to save it. It automatically chooses the root of your website, and then you just hit save. And there, you'll see it show up in there. To test it, to see what it looks like, you choose this little world. It says preview, debug, in browser, and you choose which browser you want to view it in. I like Firefox. There we go. And now you see we have a blank page, and this is the title, my web page, which I changed before. And so now let's go back and look at our PSD. This is what I want to make. So right now we have a header, so we're just going to copy this into the body section. Actually, just going to copy and paste all the text. Okay, so now we have some text inside of our HTML. I want to show you guys what this actually looks like without any structuring. So let's go back to Firefox and hit refresh. And you can see it pretty much just runs everything together. HTML doesn't read any white space. So if you go back, you see how we have some tabs in here, some line breaks. It doesn't read any of that unless you tell it to. So we just have a big old lump of text. So let's start by adding a little structure. I'm going to add a header tag. Actually, let me explain what these are. In HTML, you have elements. This whole thing right here is an element. It's made up of the markup, which is this H1 and the ending H1 and the content. Every tag, which is this or markup, always has to have a closing tag. Or else, let's just show you what this would look like. The world will end. So you have like a nice big header. H1 is header 1. So that's your main header on your document. And you go back. If you don't close this, you save it, you take that off. Everything gets that style. So you always want to make sure you close your tags. In Dreamweaver, it often just closes it itself. You can turn off this function, but it's a lot easier to keep it going. All right, let's see. So let's start laying this out. We'll do a P tag, which is a paragraph tag. Actually, you know what? I am going to do lists today, so I wasn't going to do them, but now I'm going to. So this is our little navigation. We're going to make an unordered list, which is a UL tag, unordered list. In every list, you have an LI tag, which is list item. And let's see. And then you want to close out the UL tag. And take off these paragraph tags. And save that. And here we go. Now we have a nice little list there for our navigation. So we have our header and our navigation list. Everything else can go in paragraph tags. Let's turn on word wrap, which on here it's in this little options menu and word wrap. And it wraps it, so now it's not on one line and you have to do horizontal scrolling. I'm going to do an H2 tag, which is header 2 for this little section. P tag. And I'm going to do the same for specialties. And let's You can actually wrap multiple lines within a paragraph, and you can have line breaks too, which I'm going to do for this hobbies section. And I'm going to put a break tag, which is BR, and it automatically closes itself. A BR tag, there's several tags that are similar to this. They're called empty tags. It's when they have no content between an open and close, and they close themselves. This is one. Horizontal rule is another one, and the image tag, which I'll show you in a minute, are also empty tags. Empty tags often have attributes which are mandatory, and they tell it what it needs to do. BR tag is all by itself. It really doesn't have any attributes. It just tells the code to break and put in a new line. Okay, so now we have that. Now we're going to get a little more structure in here. Looks a lot better. So we have our heading 1, we have our list, we have some body copy, our second heading, another second heading, and then more body copy. And that's pretty much the structure. We'll get into styles, but CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, they're one of the most powerful things in HTML. You can do anything to this page once you understand CSS. From just having the HTML laid out, you can change the position. You can put this at the bottom of the page if you wanted to without even moving anything in the document. So we'll get to that in a minute. Let's see. Let me just explain some of these elements. We're going to bold some of this stuff, which you can actually do with some hotkeys, like you were in Word. You could highlight and hit Control B, and it'll bold. It'll put the strong tag, which is bold. Save it, go back, and refresh. So now you can tell that these came out bold. These are now bold. All right. There's several different tags in it. There's different types of tags, obviously. There's two main categories, which are inline elements and block elements. Block elements are any elements that create a new line when you put them in. So every heading tag is a block element. Every list tag is a block element. Inline elements are things like strong, or your bold tags, your italic tags. What are some other ones? Link tags are inline tags. So they don't start new lines, and they just kind of go with the flow. So let's see. Let's add the image in here. We're going to put it right here because this is about where it's going to go. An image tag starts with IMG. And like I said, this is an example of an empty tag. So right now I have an image tag, and if you go back and you refresh, there's nothing there. It should show up right here. There's nothing there because I didn't tell it to do anything. So to show an image, you want to use the source attribute, which is src. Every attribute needs to have quotes, and within the quotes, you tell it what you want it to do. So for the source, you point to your image. In Dreamweaver, it gives you a little tooltip, and you can hit browse, and you can browse to your image. I have mine in my image folder, and then you browse to the image you want to show. You hit choose. For every image, you want to show a width and a height. This allows the browser to load your HTML faster, and you also want to have an alt attribute, which is alternative text for screen readers. Hit save, refresh, and now we have a picture in there. So right now it obviously doesn't look like much. Thank you. So let's give it a little, actually let me introduce one more tag, which is the div tag or the divider tag. Div tags basically divide up your content into sections. So I have, if you go back and look at my Photoshop document, I have this section or column, and then I have this section over here. Div tags are a great way and a great alternative to tables, which are used to be used to lay out web pages, and they were nested and they were completely disgusting, really.
Remember that one, the email.
From the email, exactly. You guys remember that. They're terrible. I hate them. But they're effective. But div tags, div tags are block elements, but you can pretty much do whatever you want with them. You can move them to the side. You can divide things up. You're not really supposed to nest div tags, which is putting a div tag within a div tag. So here we'll open one, and then just put another one. This is nesting when you do this. You have your div tag, and then you put another one in there. Anything like that is called nesting. You're technically not supposed to. I do it all the time because it's really easy to work with. But I'm going to name this ID. I'm going to give it an ID, and I'm going to call it body. And then I'm also going to put this right section that was in the PSD. I'm going to put a div tag around it, and I'm going to call it info. And then at the bottom, I'm going to close it. So now we have two div tags. It won't look any different if you go back and you look at it here. It doesn't look any different. And that's where style sheets come in. Let me put in a link. This is a link tag, the anchor tag. It also has attributes, which are always mandatory. You have your href, which stands for hypertext reference. I just learned that, actually. So you have your href, and I'm going to close it.
You'd be surprised, but this right here is what drives the whole internet.
Yeah.
Right now, this simple code is what.
That's it.
What you do at Bank of America, or what you do at. I mean, the heart of it is this.
Is the structure.
You can imagine why the internet is so vast. Because anyone can put anything.
And HTML, really, it's become more for just structuring, and CSS is for the presentation. So if you think about it, it's kind of like working in Word, and you have your Word document where you just type things out, and then you want to make it pretty, so you go into PowerPoint, and you style it, and you do slides. So your HTML document is your Word, and then your CSS is your PowerPoint. Or you can use a coloring book analogy, and you got your coloring book, and you got your outlines, then you get your crayons.
In our case, I think we use InDesign to make it pretty.
InDesign?
Yeah, PowerPoint just makes it kind of uglier, actually.
I don't use InDesign.
That's really
Yeah. Okay, so if we go back, you see we have some links. Browsers automatically style these blue or purple or red, hideous colors. But that's how we know it's a link, and they always put an underline under it. And again, you can change all of that in your style sheet. I just want to make sure I'm hitting everything that I wanted to hit today. Okay, let's make it pretty. Let's create.
I have a basic question.
Yes.
Because like the paragraph, the header one, all those things, that's like a default setting for font and size and everything. That was already preset.
Yeah, all the browsers have a default style that they apply to things. So your H1 is usually your biggest and boldest thing on the page. H2, your heading 2, is slightly smaller than your H1. Your paragraph tag is just like any body copy. So it's usually, if you don't put any style, it's usually Times New Roman or serif font. And that actually pretty much goes for all the font. It's automatically a serif.
So does it depend on the browser then?
As far as what?
How it's gonna look right now that it doesn't.
Like the times, if it's Firefox now, but if I went to Internet Explorer,
If you went to Explorer or Safari, it'll look pretty much the same way. There's slight variances, but it looks,
it's pretty much a standard font. It's
yeah, it's standard.
But from PC to Mac, it's usually
Yeah.
the times it uses.
Yeah, it's just the way the different browsers render text. Firefox and Safari render it a little bit different than Explorer. I want to say it's a little more crisp in Firefox and Safari. As if we had Explorer on here, I could show you the difference, but you'll notice it's, let's see. You can kind of see the differences in Photoshop when you play with the aliasing. Where's my character palette at?
Probably off to the side somewhere hidden.
Oh, no,
Show all menu.
there we go. This doesn't happen on PC. No, it's still hidden.
Click that.
Where?
Just a little button.
Oh, this. There we go. Okay, there we go. Sorry. So we have our character palette here, and you, not the paragraph palette. You have your aliasing here. So you have your sharp, which is pretty much what Firefox and Safari show. This is crisp, and this is kind of what it'll look like in Explorer. Yeah. So usually when you're laying out a Photoshop document, I leave this to sharp or none, because it'll pretty much look like this in the browser, because you can't, there's no aliasing control on your style sheets. So that's the only thing you can't control yet, is the aliasing of fonts. Does that pretty much answer your question? Okay. Let's see. Style sheets. Style sheets, you start in the header section of your document with a style tag, and then you give it a type attribute, and you do text/CSS. Alright, so we want to make it look like my lovely Photoshop document here. And so we want the body section, this body div, to be to the right and the info to be to the left. So to do that, we're going to say in CSS to point out a specific identifier is what the ID tags are. You put a little number sign. So you would do the number sign and then body, and that automatically recognizes this whole section right here. And there's a command in CSS called float, and it pretty much tells any block element to not be a block element anymore, and it just kind of shifts it so everything can flow. So you do float, and we're going to do float right, because we want it to go to the right. If you save this, hopefully it works. That didn't work. Alright, I actually need to specify a width as well, or else it'll just take up 100% of the page. So you do, let's see what we have in Photoshop. General width. I usually use marquees in the info palette to figure out, preferably in pixels. So I have a width of about 520 pixels. So you do width 520. Always put a px for pixel. Save, and hopefully this works. There we go. So now we have this to the right and this to the left. I'm going to show you a little trick in for CSS. If you put a star attribute and you want to automatically center everything on the page, you do margin 0, padding 0, auto. And then if you set your body to a specific width, your body tag, not the body div tag. Let's see, I think I had this at 700 pixels. And you just set this margin to 0, auto, save, go back and refresh. So now you have a section. Your whole body is automatically 700 pixels wide, and it's centered automatically. In every browser this works. So we're in Firefox, and now we're in Safari, and now you're centered. So now you have more of what we laid out in Photoshop. Almost, but not quite. But we're getting there step by step. Questions so far? Anything? Okay, I'm gonna keep going. It's magic.
I think it's funny how like little tricks and tips. For you, it's a little trick, but for me that was extremely complicated.
I know, for me it's like, I do this
it's
all
like,
the time.
This is something. It's like a little shortcut. I would hate to see like the long.
I mean, I learned this probably a couple of years ago, or last year or so, because I'm always frustrated with how am I getting my stuff centered, because with the wider browsers get, the more off to the left your stuff gets and the more white space you get. So this is an easy way, for me anyway, to get things centered within your browser.
Cool.
So you always specify this little asterisk, margin 0 auto, padding 0 auto. And this is pretty much the 0 on the first part is the top and bottom margin of your element. So with every element you have a box, and you have the inner space and the outer space of your box. And what actually separates it is your border. So you have the inner space, which you have your content, and then you have space around the content, which is your padding. And then you can have your border. And then outside your border is your margin.
And can you specify the space between like your picture and the info, and then the whole body copy, like the space in between that?
Yep, that
In
one,
like a table or whatever? Or?
yeah, that I would actually do a padding, or I would do a margin. So we have info, and then you want to do margin. You can get the regular margin tag, or you can specify your margin left, right, top, bottom. Let's do, this would be to the right of the content. So you do margin, and say you wanted like 50, let's do like 100 pixels just so we can see it. So you do that, you come in and you do refresh. It didn't work. Let's see. Margin. I'm doing the right side. Let's add it to here. Let's do margin left. Sometimes it's a lot of trial and error. So
At least it's moving.
Yeah.
You just gotta
because
figure out which other way.
because I gave it a width of 700, adding that margin expanded the width of this section, so it pushes it down to the next line to fit in that 700 block.
Oh, okay. Well, I see it.
That's what that did.
You don't gotta mess up your whole thing. Forget it. Don't worry about it.
Fix it.
No, I'm serious.
No, I want to do it though, so it's okay. So let's just give this a width. It's easier if we do that.
You're on the path.
No, it's good. It's good.
You know what? I think it's good to know it. Just those small little changes.
Exactly.
You know, they kind of add up. You know, and they're very difficult to do. Even something that's seemingly simple, you know, could take a little bit longer.
Because like you wouldn't do that like this stuff like in a table, right? I mean, I guess you could, but
You could do it in a
but
table.
it's pointless, kind of.
Yeah, just because the way
You lose control, actually. Well, not lose control, but I feel like in a table you don't have as much control as the CSS.
yeah. Oh wait, why is
Is that a table? I feel like it's more visual. You know, you move it around and stuff.
Yeah, with this, like, a table, it is naturally it's a lot easier.
That's why you would do the
Is it,
email.
yeah, it says it just looks like a grid. It's so it's easy to like follow
Yeah.
like, where everything's going.
But, tables, it's like, if, with a CSS, you can change your entire layout just by changing your CSS sheet. So you can put one in, link one, and then decide, oh, I don't like it, and just make a whole other one and swap it. And you don't have to change your layouts. That's why I use divs, because you don't have to go in. It's like, well, I don't want this over here in this cell. I want it over here. So you would have to go in and constantly move your table tags or your table cells around. Divs take a little more time and a little bit getting used to, but in the end they're really worth it. Maybe I need to expand this a little bit. Let's make this 750. Let's refresh in this thing. Command R. There we go. All right. F5 doesn't work. So let's try padding. Padding left. There, now we have a little bit more space. The padding worked. So now we have that block in there.
Thank you, by the way. Sorry. Just knock it off. Of course.
There we go. Now we're getting somewhere.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Because over there you referenced the body, but what if you want to specifically reference, like, let's say the H2, you know, your second penny, or like a specific paragraph, let's say.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah, in that case you would use a class. So you have two different paragraphs.
Yeah, exactly.
And
How do you reference that?
say you wanted this whole thing to be italic. You would give it an identifier or some sort of unique attribute. So you could do a class.
Okay.
Or you can do an ID, either one. IDs have to be unique throughout the whole document. So I have an ID called body, which I shouldn't have named it body. Let's name it content.
Yeah.
So many bodies.
Yeah. So you have your ID content, and that's the only thing that can be named content. And you have your div for info, and that's the only one that can be named info. Classes can be used multiple times to group items. So if, sometimes I use classes for really simple things like italicizing or changing a color. So I would do class and let's do italic. And then up in your CSS, the designated class, you do dot and the name you gave it. So dot italic. And then you would make it do what you want to do. So to make it italic, you do font, variant, no. Font style, italic. You always end every declaration in CSS with a semicolon. This is a declaration. And then you have your property, which is font style, and you have your value, italic. And you close this whole block right here. It's called a declaration block. You open it with a curly brace and close it with a curly brace. So we save that, and you go back in, refresh, and it's italicized.
Okay, another question. Why do you have a space?
Where?
Before and after?
After.
No, on your
Curly space.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
I just put it in there.
Oh, okay, I thought
Yeah.
that, like, made a difference.
No, the spaces don't matter.
Alright.
So like I could take it out, save, refresh, and it doesn't do anything different.
Making sure. Awesome.
So, okay, so now we have that. And let's change the universal font of my document to a serif. Dreamweaver gives you predetermined font families, which are usually always found on every computer. With HTML fonts, you only want to use generic ones, which you know are going to be on every Mac, every PC, like Times New Roman, Verdana, Trebuchet, Tahoma, Arial. Helvetica is not always on every computer. Yeah, you're better off going with Arial. And they have some other ones in here which they're adding, I think, as technology grows. But if you see, they always end it with the generic sans serif, monospace. Always end it. And they give you actually a list. So let's say we want it to be Tahoma. If the user doesn't have Tahoma on their computer, the next font you want them to use is Geneva. You can change that, and you can change it to Arial, and then a sans serif, or you can keep adding fonts until you're fonted out forever and ever. Yes. So we added a font family. If we go back, refresh, it's a Tahoma serif, sans serif. All right, let's see. Let's add a little bit. Let's make the text a little bit smaller. So let's text is font size. I usually designate my font sizes with pixels. And you can see that drops down and it looks a lot nicer right now. You can also use EM, which I usually don't use those because I don't really understand them. So pixels are more concrete, so I use pixels.
Are the M spaces? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
It goes like once, and then you have to use 21.
Yeah, you can go down to 0, negative. You can do negative 0.05. And then some browsers don't read it the same way. Excuse me. And they'll do like I'll put like a negative 0.13, and it looks different in one browser, and it looks smaller in one browser and bigger in another browser.
Picos,
Picos,
remember
yeah.
It was like a mess.
Yeah, but Picos,
That's like
for
40.
print.
yeah.
It was almost like, I think
Picos like inches almost. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just another
And there's
measure
a-
like that.
Yeah, like 0, 0, and
6 Picos.
She's Picos. We should. I think it comes in the
We used
default,
to.
right? In the
design.
design. We gotta change it.
Okay, so what I just put in 2 new styles up here. I made a class called Clear, and I styled the list of links that I have. I'm going to give this paragraph tag the Clear class. The Clear property in CSS clears your float. So if you have something floating, and if you want the thing right after it to break and go to a new line, you have to clear it. So like right here we have our links, and then the next paragraph automatically goes right to the end of the link. We want it to go to the next line, so we use the clear property, and it breaks it down. So I'm going to style the links and give them a little float left. For lists, you do their list styles, list style image. You can add an image where the dot is, and you can change it to, there's different items you can change it to. I'm going to do list style none, which will actually get rid of the dot. So now we have no punctuation there. I'm going to give each one a little bit of padding to the left so they're spaced out, 10 pixels. So now we got a little bit of space in between each one. All right, it's amazing. I'm going to get rid of List items automatically indent. So I'm going to get rid of that indent because we don't want it. I'm going to try to get rid of the indent. There we go. Let's see. Padding. With lists, they actually use padding. So instead of using the margins, you use padding. Padding. Let's do padding right here. There we go. Now we have it aligned. Let's give it a little more padding on the right side of each one. There we go. Spaced out a little bit. And if you notice, all of my items got really squeezed together. Usually with paragraph tags, you have a little bit more space in between everything. But that happened because I used my little shortcut. That's the only downside to that. It clears any empty space between your block items. So I usually just go in and I'll declare a p tag and give it, I think I'm going to do a little, oh, you just do like padding bottom or margin bottom and like 5 pixels. And that'll add space underneath every paragraph tag. And you can do it for the top too. So now you have space in between everything. So let's see, let's change the color of the links. To change the color of the links in CSS, you reference the item, the tag, which is A for anchor, and you use what's called a pseudo class, which all anchors have 4 different pseudo classes, and it's link, visited, hover, and focus. Oh no, link, visited, hover, and active. So for the link part, that's when it's just like this. You haven't gone to any of the pages, they're just there. Let's change the color. Let's choose a green. And the colors give you hexadecimal options in RGB. So your first 2 numbers are your red, your second 2 numbers are your green, and your last 2 are your blue. And let's get rid of the underline, which you do with a text decoration property. Text decoration. And let's do none. So now if you go back, refresh, they didn't change color.
How do you know the numbers to the colors?
In Dreamweaver, you get that little pop-up. Here, let me show
I
it.
picked it with a color picker.
Yeah, I picked it with a color
When
picker.
you type in color and then color, it pops, that
Yeah.
pops up.
You can get that from any program too, from Photoshop.
Yeah, let's see. So you can go into Photoshop. You get the eyedropper, which you hit the eye for, and say I want to get this purple or like the tan of my face. So you just click it. The color of sunshine or my red hair or something. And then you go in to your color, and this is what you would copy and paste into there. So, and you always put the number sign next to it. So let me, text decoration, none. You can do a universal link style by just using A, and it'll style every state of the link as what you put it. So let's see. So now they're tan color, there's no underline, that's it. So say you wanted to, when you wanted the user to hover over the link, you wanted it to change color and have an underline or be italic or do something different. For that, you do A : hover. And then you do, let's do that green again. In CSS 3 and the later versions, they've been shortening the hexadecimal codes to 3 numbers, especially if your 2 numbers are the same. So we have 2 zeros, 2 sixes, and 2 zeros. They'll shorten it to 060. I don't like that, so I add in the extra ones. I don't like a lot of things, obviously. Let's add a line through. So we refresh when we hover. We got a little green little line through. Yeah.
Don't pick.
This is actually really powerful. You can use it for a lot of different things. You can actually use the hover tag, the hover pseudo class on different items like a div tag or an image tag, and you want it to change an image. You would change like the background image of it for a div. I use that for links and divs when I use images, and you know those title bars that you see a lot, that they're images you hover and they change. A lot of that's done with lists and CSS and one image. Usually that bar is just one image with the 4 different or 2 different states or 3 different states, and they're stacked. And then the background image is just shifted up and down and left and right for each item. So it's really powerful, and it actually cuts down on the amount of stuff once you understand it. And it's more advanced technique, but it cuts down on the amount of items that every browser needs to download when you have one image that references these 3 different states. So you can have a gray button that turns white, and then it turns black when you click it. So it has it stacked. It's pretty cool. It's very powerful. So let's add a little link in here. I'm going to take this to my portfolio site. Let's go to Facebook. And this contact page, let's pretend it's a page within our website. So we're going to do contact.html.
Is Jessica Scheeler, is that .com?
Uh-huh.
C-O-N? Is that
Oh no, it's an M. Doesn't look like an M.
Looks like an N.
Yeah.
Up there too, when you said margin 0 auto, it looks like an N.
Yeah. It's
screen view?
Yeah.
Line 7.
It's an M.
This works.
This link right here, this is called a relative link, because if we actually had the page within our website, it would go to contact.html. So let's just create a new one. I'll just save a blank page. We're going to name this contact. And then if you go and you click it in your browser, it'll take you right to it, keeping whatever URL was before it to your site. So if this was like area601.net/index and I hit contact, it would go to area601.net/contact.html. And then there's several different links. Say this contacts item was in a folder, was in a directory called contact. You put that in there, you hit don't update. You want to link to it, you would type the name of the directory and a backslash and then the name. And then you wanted to go back over here. We'll just type in go home. To get back to the index page, you can do a directory reference, which is you want to go up 1 level, so you do 2 dots, a backslash, and then the name of the file. Refresh, go to contact, do go home, it'll take you right back. And then there's also a site root reference, which is just a backslash. And this backslash means go to the very highest directory in your site and then find this file. So in this contact, we would do slash, say contact was in like HTML file contact page. So you would do backslash file or HTML file contact page .html. So, and then, yeah, it's just, it's a lot easier. I just use these, sorry. I just use this to go up through directories. So if you're in a directory and you want to go up to the one above it, you just use dots. And if you're in like underneath 2 directories and you want to go up to the very first one, you use 2 of them. So I'm going back 1 and back another. So that's how that works. Yeah. So that's linking pretty much. I usually just use these little relative references and the little directory up indicators. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what about adding right now this famous share button or the like button on Facebook?
Oh, now you're getting complicated. The
Slow it down, JP.
share buttons, like the Facebook like button. Let's see, let's go to Facebook. Let's grab the Hershey's Felicidad.
I saw the Hershey's is in Spanish.
Yeah, they don't have the me gusta, no?
Yeah, I changed it.
Me gusta Hershey's.
Let's see.
Glad to hear you're here.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Oh!
I was there.
Baby.
So happy that you showed
I
up.
signed in.
When's training?
I'm still getting used to, Saturday.
I was there.
He's already saying thanks for the
I gotta catch up with
Yeah.
So if you have a page and you want to get a like button on Facebook, you go into your settings, edit page, and you go into promote with a like box, and then you hit like button. And here you type in your URL, which let's just do. In here you would put the address to your Facebook page, and you do standard. Wait, is this a button? Yeah. You choose the verbiage you want to display, like or recommend. Choose your font. There's 2 color schemes, and then you do get code. It gives you your code. You can either choose the iframe one or the Facebook markup language, which is a lot easier, and you just choose that, and it's 1 line of code. You go in. I'm going to put it in here in my little info area in its own little paragraph tag. I'm going to paste it in there, save it, and let's see if it works. It may not work because you may have to be on a server for it to work. Yeah, I'm going to get the iframe. Yeah, the Facebook markup language, I believe, has to be on a server to see it. So you do the iframe, save, web page, refresh. And there it is.
Nice.
We have Facebook Live.
And now we have Facebook
I
Live.
like that.
Caliente.
The share buttons are, depending on which one you use, are a little more complicated. To do a Facebook share,
What about shopping?
shopping cart, you buy a.
Special service.
Let's see.
Let's have the last Facebook.
I don't even know. Am I friends with Laz?
Must be.
I think so, because he popped up, no?
Yeah.
No, not
yeah.
necessarily.
I forget how to I don't even know how to do a Facebook share.
Facebook share.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's hilarious.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
So idle.
Oh, David. Okay. So now that we have a basic website, let me show you how to upload it and make it live.
Nice.
Because this is the most important part. Because if you don't make it live, no one's
Gonna see it.
ever going to see it. So I'm going to upload this to Area 601. And this is an FTP program, so you can download one of these. There's a bunch that are free. I use FileZilla. Ariel uses Transmit or CyberDuck. Or for Mac. FileZilla is also for Mac, but it's for Mac and PC. So you just type in your server name, which for me is www.area601.net. You type in your username, and then you type in your password. And then you hit connect, and it'll bring up your folders on your web server. Where I want to upload my stuff is usually in, for this it's in domains. It depends where you're hosting your stuff, where you'll have to go into to put it. Sometimes it's in htdocs, sometimes you have to click on the domain name. Like here you'll hit domains and then go into the domain name. So you just kind of got to browse around throughout your server and your help documents to see where you want it to go. So I want mine to go into domains, area 601, HTML, and I'm going to make a new folder called cannot make untitled folder. Alright, so I can't make one. Huh. Maybe I have me on, like, I blocked myself. I blocked myself from, probably. So let's just do desktop, and we can just take this my web page folder, and we'll just upload. You upload, and it cannot create. So I can't upload it, but that's
how you would do it.
that's how you would do it.
You could do all that through Dreamweaver.
You can do it all through Dreamweaver too. So let's see. We'll do site, manage.
Transmit isn't my usual program. That was a recommendation from Rob, so if there's any issues with that, it's his fault.
True, but mine works.
To set up your FTP in Dreamweaver, you go into Site, Manage Sites. You choose your site. Let's go through the actions. Site, Manage Site, Web Page. My web page. You do Edit, and then go to the remote server. How do you connect to your remote server? So FTP. Type in the host name, and then the folder you usually connect to, you just put a backslash because that's your root directory, and then you type in your username, and then you type in your password. Always test your connection. It'll come up waiting for server. Hopefully this will connect. If not, I need to check use secure FTP, and usually that connects. I don't think so. I think you can just, yeah, this isn't going to connect, so let's try www. Oh.
Good thing we saw that.
Let's test it. Connecting. Dreamweaver has connected successfully. So it looks like I had to add the www and use secure FTP. You next, done. Gives you a little pop-up, you hit OK, and now you can go into your little view option drop-down. You have your local view and then your remote view. And it'll connect, and it'll show you all the folders that are on your remote website. as it waits for server again. And it's probably not going to connect. And then from there, you can pretty much just put your files, and then they are online. And
For the
all
whole
sent
world
out.
to see.
For the whole world to see.
The World Wide Web.
Why isn't it connecting again?
It's not connecting because this is being recorded and you're in a room full of people.
I know.
That's usually how that works out.
What do you want to say?
Does anyone have any other questions? Oh. I can't get the server information.
In all fairness to Dreamweaver, I mean, Jessica really, I like what Jessica showed, that it shows you the true standard, not code,
Mm-hmm.
but you can work it a little bit, like design-wise, like forgetting all aspects of the code ethics,
Mm-hmm.
lines, and you could, use design view, but I think this really shows the heart of what happens behind the scenes. Every time you use design mode, because that part, see, it's
Yeah.
there, and it's more visual. You can edit there, and you can move things around. You don't have to worry too much about code, but
Now that was if you could design on your view.
Yeah.
Yep, this is in design view.
And that's something that I wanted to add on a graphic design point of view. If you go back to the design mode and click on properties down there, on the properties tab,
Yeah,
you
this
have a lot
actually
of
gives
you
you.
have all the tools as
Like-
italic, bold,
It's the
so you don't
same,
have to
except-
really
yeah.
know, bro.
But she's showing you the core of like
Yeah.
HTML. It's
Hardcore.
awesome, like,
Show the
how-
page properties on right there on the not on lower
Bottom right,
bottom right.
other right.
Yeah.
Page properties.
Right there. If you go to links, let's say.
I never use this stuff, that's why.
Oh yeah, because
Yeah, I know,
it's
it's like-
more
It's
like
just
very
another way of
links
doing
more
what
to.
she did, but this is through a design.
But this is through
perspective.
design.
But
That's if you don't know all the code.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
see there you can
Yeah.
choose. It's more like InDesign or Photoshop if you
Yeah.
can say it that way. Not really, but you know.
But it's come a long way. I mean,
Not really, but
You
No,
can
but
change,
If
yeah.
you relate more to this, yeah.
Yeah, you can change your
More
font
visual.
sizes, you can change your colors. If you're a visual person, you can change your fonts.
yeah, but it's good to know like the hardcore.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
You
The
should
hardcore code because they need
Yeah.
to edit something that you didn't do,
Exactly.
and it's good to know the structure and how it works because then you can go back and just.
Like here, you can set
Right.
your font, which I did in the CSS, and it's reading that. It set the font size, your color of the font, bright ugly red. Change the background of your font. It's gonna be terrible. It's gonna suck.
Ooh, that's gonna be ugly. Wow.
Oh.
MySpace.
I like
I wanna go to that website.
That's like Matias' screen when he's writing.
yeah.
He's still strange.
He says use the vision.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you can do everything within the IDE.
That's for
And
later. First, you gotta learn the hard way.
first
then
you gotta learn the hard way,
Then you
and then you
Come a long
take
way.
the shortcuts. It has come a long way. I completely
It
agree.
used to be really bad. This sort of design mode. Which
Yeah.
You would go to the code and it'd be like.
No, man.
But like their code has actually gotten cleaner too.
Yeah.
It really didn't add much, but the more you do, the more sloppy your code gets. And then you ask someone, like, you don't have time to do it, and you ask, like, someone like me to do it, and I go in and I'm like, what the hell happened?
Kill him. Just so cool.
Yeah, it's still recording. So,